An alert on an anthrax outbreak in neighbouring Lesotho.
The outbreak was in the region of Maseru. A 10-kilometre radius has been quarantined.
The Ministry of Health says it has positively confirmed an outbreak of an anthrax in the past week. Farmers from Hatseka were warned not to take their products to trade fair held in Maseru recently due to the possible spread of the disease. Even the animal movement between Free State and Lesotho will be affected.
So far, we have Ladybrand Maseru zone. We also have Mafeteng as well as Zazdron, Webna. We also have Maputse, Botawote, including Tabamfutsanyang. So those are the three zones that we have. We have already communicated with them, and they are also taking steps so that there is no movement of animals and there's no trade of any kind. And people are aware that there is some kind of this disease that we are dealing with here.
But many still don't know what this disease is or how to deal with it.
Anthrax is a notifiable zoonosis which affects all warm-blooded animals, but it is mainly a disease of herbivores, cattle, sheep, goats. It can get to humans by handling or eating contaminated animal carcasses.
So then it's not too much scarce for meat lovers like myself?
No, there's not too much scare as long as you know where your meat is coming from. As long as your meat is coming from an abattoir or a certified slaughterhouse, you are still very safe.
While the ministry assures that the situation is deemed safe and contained, the communities in the proximity are urged to exercise extreme caution before consuming meat of animals that may have died due to unknown circumstances. RAPELANG RADEBE, SABC News, Maseru, Lesotho.
For an update on the outbreak of anthrax, we are joined by our Lesotho correspondent, RAPELANG RADEBE, via Skype from Maseru. RAPELANG, good evening and thank you so much for joining us on the Globe.
Good evening, Lulu. Good day to you.
Now, according to the Health Ministry, 3 zones were affected. Has the outbreak spread to other areas of Maseru?
That is worrying because this is very early alert and they have not really known how far the extent of the spread is, and they are just warning that people should exercise much caution and care in case there are instances of similar nature. There had already been reports from other quarters that similar indications had been detected in the inland, where the area called Tabatseka. And right now it's a bit of a fishing factor as to where to confirm where the outbreak has come.
Now, speaking of Hatseka, farmers from there have been warned not to take their product to the Maseru trade fair. What measures have authorities put in place to ensure that they do not do so?
They have actually sent their delegation, their team all over the place where the reports had come to make sure that they tell the farmers not to have their cattle or their sheep mixing with each other. Try to quarantine them to their safest areas and to be quite vigilant about what they eat or any signs of detection, to immediately call their standby team that is on high alert to make sure that they can come and observe and possibly maybe even inject with the medication that is required. So the measures that are taken relies heavily on the reports that they get from people.
What's the reaction been like from those farmers or the people of Maseru who have been warned and have heeded the call with regards to, for instance, going to the trade fair, which obviously is going to affect them economically?
Absolutely. It was a bit of a scary factor, especially to those who really wanted to attend that trade fair. And unfortunately, others were not even aware they had picked up the signs. If you could see, about 74 people were tested, about 24 of them tested positive of the signs that they could have somehow got in touch with the cattle or the sheep that were affected. So it raised a bit of an awareness or a scare. But fortunately, the Ministry of Health and Agriculture said they're working hand in hand and they have a beefed up team to make sure that wherever they can pick up the signs of anything that is closer to that detection, they can attend to them speedily.
Now, Rapelang, we understand that even animal movement between the Free State and Lesotho will be restricted. Has there been proper policing at the ports of entry between the two countries?
Yeah, that is where the problem actually emerges, because a lot of areas between Lesotho and South Africa are quite porous, where people can simply go graze across the country and vice versa. So it becomes a little bit, there are places where you don't even have a fence, mostly depend on the river. If the river is low, the crossing between the two countries becomes quite easy. But what they are doing is sending the delegations, because they almost know the areas, to at least depend on warning and making sure that there's some cooperation between the districts. To some extent, they even meet the chiefs to alert, especially the young boys who are heading the cattle in that particular region, such that they can be vigilant and understand the consequences of what would happen if the cattle are mixed or mingled together.
Are Basotho aware of the outbreak of anthrax and what anthrax really is?
It is still a bit of a problem, and the definition is still quite scarce. I met with other people who actually remembered learning of the anthrax scares, of which they were saying, is it something to do with the letter bomb that people send to you, and then it explodes? What exactly is anthrax? But information was beginning, I think, to spread as people began to pay attention that anthrax actually, the level of anthrax that you can inhale, that can actually go to human beings, it's not as high. It is mostly restricted to people who get interacting with the cattle or with the herd that has been detected or that has had that particular kind of disease. But it does not spread as fast as wide. So as we speak, the level of threat is really not as concerning, but they are leaving no chances to anything, and they're making sure that the message is spread as wide as possible, such that there cannot be catastrophe that can be detected.
Rapelang, is anthrax common in Lesotho?
I am made to understand this is at least third time or so that such anthrax has been detected, and it had been on a very limited scale, such that it was thwarted quite quickly. But they are now beginning to worry as to finding exactly what the source of what could have happened. Where does it originate from? Somewhere that they need to be concerned. Right now, they said they are trying to put as much research into understanding where the actual cause of the anthrax could have emanated.
In terms of educating Basotho and ensuring that they are aware of anthrax and what it is, measures to be taken to avoid, the harm from meat contamination, that is consumed by Basotho. What measures have been put in place, and are people heeding the call?
Yes, absolutely. They are said they are meeting, especially with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Health, to try and put the foot soldiers right on the ground, to try and educate people. They depend on anyone who can be closer to being able to spread the message. Fortunately, nowadays, quite a high number of Basotho own cell phones, and they said they will be going to social media. They will be making sure that they put pamphlets, and the radio is robust in making sure that people do understand the basic caution as to what it is they can do, what kind of signs they should detect, and really to try and avoid consuming any meat that has died under suspicious circumstances. They should make sure that they know exactly the origin of what they are consuming, and really try to avoid carrying raw meat from anywhere, because a lot of them, they just see a cow maybe dying, they start to dissect it, and you find that it spreads quite far because they tend to share. So in no time, you find that it can be reported on a vast spaces in between those. So they are trying their level best to depend on media, on social media, on a word of mouth, to make sure that it is arrested as soon as possible.
Now, very quickly, in wrapping up, Rapelang, going back to the farmers and the people who are going to be, economically affected by this, by anthrax that is currently spreading. What exactly, are there any measures that government has put in place in ensuring that these farmers will be compensated?
Right now, I think the attention or the concentration was to try and arrest and identify that there are no new reports that are coming through. What they are saying is that they are trying to equip people with the skills, because already about 21 cattle were already buried. Unfortunately, 3 of them were already eaten by people who were not suspecting that there could be anything untoward. But they're trying to make sure how to dispose those carcasses that had been affected efficiently, and to try and make sure that the message spreads really fast. As to what measures that would be taken, a lot of them would depend for those who would be fortunate enough to have insurance on them, but I have not really heard of any compensatory measures that would be taken to ensure that they recover from the loss. But for a lot of ordinary Basotho, I think they would have to just fend themselves.
Rapelang, thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave it